Good afternoon and welcome to the Human Research Protection Program's Research Matters. I am Scott Myers, the Clinical Research Educator for UT Southwestern's Office of Research Regulatory Affairs, and I will be one of the moderators for today's session. I'm going to quickly go over some housekeeping items. If you have any questions for our presenters during today's session, please type them in the Q&A. One of the moderators will respond to you during the session, or we will address it at the end of the presentations. This session is being recorded and you can watch it again right after it's finished by clicking on the Microsoft Teams live link in the email invitation. We'll also send you the slides via email. You can find the links to future meetings, slides, handouts, and past recordings on the HRPP's Research Matters website under the Training and Resources page. We do provide a certificate of attendance for those who have logged in using a valid email address. If you do not receive one via email, but should have, please send an email to hrpp@utsouthwestern.edu to request a certificate. Lastly, we want to hear from you. We use the information you provide to plan for future topics you would like us to cover during these sessions. You may also let us know how our speakers did and how our office is doing, so please take a few minutes to complete the survey to provide your feedback. You may access the survey using your phone via the QR code or your computer by selecting the link. We will also drop the link for the survey in the Q&A. Here is the agenda for today. First, Mayad Bird, our IRB director, will provide updates from the IRB office. Then Jonathan Hunter, the director of COI and export control, will give an introduction to the conflict of interest and export control team members and the work they do in support of research at UT Southwestern. Finally, Manali Thakur, the program manager for quality assurance and monitoring, will present to you on quality assurance and monitoring of data sharing practices in human subjects research. If time permits, we will conclude with an open Q&A session. So I will turn it over to Mayad.
Thank you, Scott. Good afternoon, everyone. Let me get my slides up on here. All right, folks, so I have a couple of updates from the IRB. So first up, I wanted to welcome Natalie Lemanchik to the IRB office. She's our newest staff member and joined our office. She joined our office late in March, and she joins us as a regulatory analyst and comes to us with almost 2 years of experience with human subject research, and previously worked as a regulatory associate in neurological surgery. What's wonderful is that Natalie's jumped in 2 feet first and has already began reviewing some of the new submissions. We're thrilled to have her on board. And just a quick announcement on a couple of more vacancies. We still have 2 regulatory analyst vacancies that we need to fill. So that's all I'll report on IRB staff. Next up, I want to report an update with regard to the UT Southwestern ethos migration. So we have completed 3 of the 4 waves. So as you know, wave 1 was completed on January 24th. We had 1,042 studies that were migrated at that time. Wave 2A was migrated or completed on February 28, 2025. That was 719 studies. And Wave 2B was completed on April 7, 2025. And just last week, we started with our Wave 3. We are hoping to get through this wave fairly quickly. We're actually hoping to get through this wave by Friday. Now, I will note that there are still some studies that kind of are lingering in EIRB, and that's because they have business items open when we need to migrate studies over into the new system, and we're trying to do migration or waves or migration in kind of groups of studies so that we use our resources efficiently. So again, well, we're going to work through that wave 3 and again get this last trickle of studies into ethos, and then we will be working on our IRB reviews. So as you know, the past few months, our team has been heavily dedicated to migrating studies from EIRB to Ethos. So again, that took a lot of the IRB staff time away from reviewing Q items to work through migration. Again, taking that burden off of the research community of having to migrate their own studies. And thanks to their hard work, our transition and migration efforts are winding down. So as we kind of transition forward, our primary focus will be shifting our review to the Q items and improving our turnaround time so we better serve the research community. Obviously, we could not have done any of this and worked through this migration if it wasn't for your patience and your dedication as we move forward to stabilize the submission and stabilize submission, the system, and operationalize the process for getting a backlog of our review items out. So the next big thing that we're going to be working on is a strategy to manage the IRB queue and get our backlog out and try to get our review times as close to pre-UT Southwestern Ethos implementation turnaround times. So that'll be our next big goal, and we will be working over the next month to try to get that reorganized so again that we can work on those backlogs. This month we should be talking about Protocol Builder, but it has yet been delayed one more time. And as you know, with systems, sometimes bugs come up, and the company or the vendor we've been working with on Protocol Builder, they don't want to release a system to us that has a bug or has many bugs. And this is their version 2. So this is why we're delaying the launch of Protocol Builder to sometime mid-May, with the hopes of a short demo that we can plan in next month's Research Matter. And last but not least, you all are aware of this, but I just want to make sure you all know about reporting or know how to report issues to our office regarding UT Southwestern Ethos or EIRB. So the first thing, obviously, you want to draft your email. But what's really, really important is that you copy a link or copy the study number, study link, the submission link number, because that helps us get directly to the item where there you might have a concern with. Again, this is if the item is related to a business item in an Ethos system or even an EIRB. We want you to take a screenshot because, as you know, your permissions and your level of access may be different from ours, so we may not be able to see the same thing. So you sharing a screenshot with us will help us understand what you may see on your end. Write a short description. We want to say, okay, I'm trying to do this, or maybe I'm trying to respond to something and something's not showing up, or an option or a text, or something's failing on my end. So write a short description and then send your email and include the link to your the submission or the study, a screenshot, and the short description. So again, this is going to help us kind of pinpoint and narrow our focus so that we can further investigate what should be happening in the error that you've reported to us and get a fix in place and be able to communicate with our RAS group that kind of speaks a different language than what we're used to on a day-to-day basis. With that, that's all that I have from an IRB standpoint. I will turn things over to you, Jonathan.
All right, thanks, Matt. I'll go ahead and share my screen. All right. Okay, so thanks, Matt, again. Thanks, Scott, for hosting. We have been invited here to just give a brief introduction about the COI and export control team. My name is Jonathan Hunter, and I am the new director of this team. Just started a few weeks ago. I come to you from Baylor College of Medicine, and before that, did some consulting. So we are excited to share a little bit of information about ourselves. And of course, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us after this is finished. So we're going to start with conflict of interest. Conflict of interest, we are divided into a couple of different work groups. And the first is conflict of commitment. The second is conflict of interest proper. On the conflict of interest side, we're mostly concerned with reviewing outside activity requests and then the financial disclosures that are associated with that. So outside activity requests, these are when our researchers have relationships with outside entities and they want to do some activities. So for example, consulting with a drug company. That may be a perfectly acceptable activity, but that's the kind of activity that nevertheless we would need to review. And so that's part of what our conflict of commitment team does over there. On the conflict of interest side, we are concerned with financial interests as they relate to research projects. So for this, we have a set of regulations, both at the federal level and the state level, and then we also have some UT Southwestern policies that we have to abide by when we consider those financial interests and whether they are permissible, and if they're permissible, how we manage them ultimately so that we can reduce and ideally prevent bias in research. So that's what we do on the conflict of interest and conflict of commitment team. Here are the individuals on our teams. So we've got Beth. Beth is on this call right now. I'll ask her to contribute in just a minute. Beth McCall, Alicia, Aisha, Neela, Vince, Sandy, they all have different responsibilities on either side of the coin there for our COC or our COI. They all do a great job and they're very customer service oriented, so you're always welcome to reach out to them and ask questions. Let's dive in a little bit deeper. So for conflict of interest, you may be aware that we have a conflict of interest system in which individuals submit forms for their outside activities and their financial disclosures. That system is called InfoEd. We intake those, we review those, and then of course we give a determination based on whether it's permissible or not. And if permissible, what the conditions are that surround that in order for us to manage that properly. Beth, did you have anything you wanted to add to the slide over here?
Yeah, so I'm Beth Trumpauer. I'm the COI manager. If you look me up in Outlook, I'm Elizabeth Trumpauer, but I go by Beth. So the conflict of commitment team is the one, they're really the first line of defense when you're submitting your statement of financial interest or an outside activity request. They'll intake it, review it for permissibility and completeness, facilitate review by the supervisor and the notifications of approval. And then it'll move on to the conflict of interest team, as mentioned, and they'll really be the ones to assess that against institutional responsibilities, institutional research, things like that, and determine if there's any conflicts that exist and if we need to issue any management plans. They're also involved in some monitoring of any management plans. And we do have a conflict of interest committee and also an institutional conflict of interest committee made up of various leadership at the institution and faculty members who will review the interests as needed. And that's really how we get, how we arrive at the management plans.
Thanks, Beth. And just to draw on a distinction that Beth mentioned for us here. So when we deal with conflicts of interest, we are thinking about them both from a personal standpoint. So for individual investigators who may have that interest, and how we would manage that. And then we also deal with that from an institutional perspective. The institution has all kinds of arrangements with external entities, and so sometimes those create a conflict at the institutional level. And so that's what that institutional conflict of interest committee is for. All right, thanks again, Beth. Here's just some quick info here. We have multiple statements. You can see a very large number. We have 1,400 submitted annually. That describes those interests and outside activities. The individuals who are required to submit financial statements, those are called covered individuals. We have over 14,000 here at UTSW. So you can see our volume is very heavy. We have an annual disclosure season that runs from January to March. So that just wrapped up last month. And also there is a requirement for researchers to update their financial interests within 30 days of acquiring something new or discovering something new. We also do annual COI training, and then you can see here some numbers around the number of management plans that we have for both personal and institutional conflicts. So again, that's just information about the COI team. And now we're moving on to export control. So export control, you can see here, is part of the larger research security effort that we have here at UT Southwestern, but is specifically focused around export licensing requirements and related items. So export control, you may interact with them on a regular basis, especially if you do things with international collaborators. You may not. But one of the things to note here is that export control and research security more broadly is a highly dynamic environment right now. There's a lot of emphasis around export control and research security more broadly at the federal level, and our rules are ever changing. So we are a dynamic team and poised to adapt to those changes as needed. I've got Nick, who is our export control manager, here on the phone with us, and he may chime in here in a second. So here's our team. So there's Nick there at the bottom. We have Brenda and we have Corey as well. They analyze a number of different things. Nick, would you mind just giving a brief overview, a very high level of what Brenda and Corey work on?
Yeah, absolutely. So Brenda's primarily responsible for reviewing export control questionnaires, which are part of the visa application process. And so when we're looking to host international exchange students or other international collaborators that will be here in a position under typically an H-1B or J-1 visa, Brenda does all of the necessary legwork to determine whether there's any licensing requirements around hosting either the visa themselves, the visa applicant themselves, or around the research that they may be performing. And then Corey Hayes kind of does a lot of the miscellaneous and every other type of review that we have. So foreign travel, any supplier or sponsor that we engage with, and you know, a bunch of other ad hoc stuff. So anytime we're looking at publications or co-authors, he does a lot of restricted party screening just to make sure that we're not you know, interacting with folks that might be on restricted party lists.
All right, thanks, Nick. And you can see here that just like in the COI side, we also have systems that we use on the export control side. And so we have visual compliance, which is where we do some screening. We have REDCap, which is where the ECQ, that export control questionnaire, exists. eShip Global is another system. And then from all of that, we have some technology control plans that we formalize, and that's, you know, sort of similar, you can think about, to a management plan on the COI side for how it is that we are controlling the technology and other materials as we do our reviews. So some quick numbers as well. We have approximately 472 visa application ECQs, 164 supplier assessments, 235 travel authorizations, 149 shipments. We have 182 ad hoc requests and 18 technology control plans. So you can see our office is very, very busy. We have a lot of activity here at UT Southwestern, so it makes it really exciting and, again, very dynamic here in this regulatory environment. So why are we talking about all this today? So we are part of the broader Office of Research Regulatory Affairs office. So Mayad and I are leading these two teams with Kim on the QA and monitoring side. And so we are part of the bigger Aura team underneath Rhonda, and we do a lot of good work together and collaborate often. And so we just wanted to share a little bit of information about ourselves to you and get to know us. And then obviously you can reach out to us if you need any help with any of these issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jonathan, and hello, everyone. My name is Manali Thakur. I'm the program manager for the Quality Assurance and Monitoring team. Today, I will be introducing a new initiative that is focused on our data use agreement reviews. With this, our goal is very simple. We are trying to support HIPAA compliant, accurate, and a well-documented data sharing processes across our studies. I'll walk you all through what we're reviewing, how we approach it, and what study teams can expect. So let's dive in. So we just launched this new type of review in April. That is just the beginning of this month. The focus is on ensuring that data sharing aligns with the approved DUA, that's the data use agreement, and the study protocol, and that all the documentation is in place to support those activities. We've started really small right now. We're reviewing 3 studies this quarter, and we plan to build from there. So let's look at what we are gonna review during the DUA monitoring visit. We will review all data formats, whether it's sharing hard copy records, digital files, or media. We also review how the data is being shared. You might be using different platforms like RedCap, shared drives, emails, or even physical shipping records. So we're going to look at those too. If there is international sharing, we check for any necessary reviews and permissions. We also review the DUA documents, the IRB approvals in place, ethos submissions, and any financial interest management plans to make sure that everything aligns with each other. This scope helps us get a very full picture of how data is being handled and shared. Here are some of the core questions we ask during a DUA review. We check for any mismatches between actual data sharing and what's approved in the DUA. That includes checking if any data was shared before the DUA was active or after it expired. We also make sure that forms like the HIPAA waiver form or the data collection forms and other study documents, they reflect the actual data practices. We confirm that data is only shared with the approved institutions, that the PHI is de-identified when required, and that there's a clear audit trail showing how data has been handled. Again, for international studies, we also verify that the necessary IRB reviews and permits are in place, if applicable. Talking about data sharing, how can we not talk about de-identification? Because that's an integral part when sharing health data. So such data doesn't always fit into one box. So we take the time to understand what's being collected and what's being shared. If the data is de-identified, that means all the HIPAA identifiers are removed, making it the safest level to work with. A limited data set allows for a little bit more flexibility, like things like dates, zip codes, but it still keeps patient identity protected. If the data is identifiable, meaning it contains PHI or PII, we make sure the right approvals and safeguards are in place when sharing. And just to note, sometimes only a portion of the data collected is shared. So we look at the full picture, we confirm what's being sent out and check that it matches with what's approved in the DUA. So how to prepare? Here's what we ask study teams to do to prepare for our monitoring visit. That's the DUA review. First, please make sure that all study records are available for us to review. Anything related to data sharing or approvals. If RedCap is being used, we will request for access to your project so that we can review the data flow and the exports. Our monitors will provide a RedCap tip sheet to the study team, and that will have like step-by-step instructions on creating a new role called Aura Monitor in your RedCap project, what privileges to give access to, and we also will share like how you can remove access after the visit is complete. We'll coordinate with the study team on whether the review can be done remotely or we need to come on site. And lastly, we ask for the study coordinator to be available for a quick debrief at the end. If needed, we may also request the PI's availability for follow-up. So here I've drawn out what a typical DUA monitoring visit looks like from start to finish. We begin with a brief meet and greet with the study coordinator. Then we review all study records. If REDCap is used, we do confirm access before we start. During the review, we ask the coordinator to stay available on Teams in case we have any questions that come up. And once the review is done, we will hold a debrief meeting to walk through any findings and outline next steps. If there are findings, we shall send a formal actions required report to the PI and study team with a 2-week window to respond. Our team does stay available during this 2-week period to help with questions. And once all items are resolved, we send out the final monitoring report and officially close out the visit. To summarize, I'd say this process is very similar to a not-for-cause monitoring visit that you may have gone through with our team, QAM. Just the records that we review will look different. All right, wrapping up this presentation. This is a new addition to our QAM monitoring efforts, and like any new initiative, it is going to evolve with time. We're focused on building a process that's helpful, consistent, and aligned with the research needs here at UT Southwestern. So your feedback is not just welcome, it is essential as we move forward. If you have any questions after today or want to connect, our full QAM team is listed here, and we're always happy to support. Oh, and what do we have here? Turns out, yes, we can share knowledge, just with a little paperwork first. So thank you. Thank you all.
All right, thank you all, and thank you everyone. We have concluded the presentations, and now we're going to move into our open Q&A session. So I invite you to submit any questions or comments that you may have at this time. I'm going to pause for a few seconds to allow you time to type up any questions. And while we wait for you to get them typed up, I just want to remind you of the survey. If you can just spend a few minutes to complete the questions, we will use the information to improve the content of these sessions and our presentation of them. We will also be able to see what areas we need to work on in the office and what areas we are excelling in. All right, I'll just give you all a minute. Okay, so we do have one question here about my study is in post review. I'm curious about checking its status for final approval and whether Parkland can review during post review. Does anybody know the answer to that?
I can chime in on that. Uh-oh, where did it go? Is it in published?
It's in published, yes.
Okay,
Sorry.
thank you. Okay, my study's in post review. I'm curious about checking its status for final approval. Okay, so studies that are in post review that have identified Parkland or our affiliates as study sites, and it's been approved, yeah, they should have access to the submission so that they can do their performance site review. And then you can also use the approval status tab to kind of track where Parkland may be with their performance site approval.
Thank you, Mayad. I'll just give just a few more seconds to see if anybody has any last minute questions they'd like to ask. Okay, this one is, can we view checklists for these additional regulatory reviews ahead of time? I believe that's a question for you, Manali.
Yes, I can take that one. Upon request, yes, we can share those checklists. So if whoever has this question, if they can reach out to me, my email address is manali.tucker@utsouthwestern.edu, and I can provide that.
Thanks, Manali.
I guess the next question, I can take that one as well. So the question is, what type of study will the DUA review monitor, or will this apply to any study that uses a DUA? So any study that has an active DUA will be eligible to get monitored by us. So yeah, hope that answered the question.
Okay.
And I think I can take the next one, Scott. So the
Okay.
question is for studies that were in EIRB and are being migrated to Ethos by study teams, what is the review process? Okay, so I imagine that this is for exempt studies because the IRB office is actually migrating all studies that are non-exempt research. So if you plan to migrate a study from EIRB to Ethos, meaning you're submitting a new study in Ethos, if there are no changes being made, you're just trying to stand the study up in Ethos, then our IRB office review it'll be an administrative review. So we'll just accept the review and move it forward, and then you can submit your future business items to that study that now exists in Ethos. One of the problems I want to note that we can't just migrate a study from EIRB, or I should say study teams cannot just migrate a study or create a new study in Ethos and you have a Velos record attached to it. So if there's any type of funding or anything like that, this is going to cause an issue for the Velos record to no longer be attached to the new Ethos record. So I will note that. But again, if you're just migrating a study from EIRB to Ethos, meaning just submitting a new study and there are no changes, it's going to undergo an administrative process. If the study is being migrated over to Ethos, and there are changes, then it's going to undergo the standard review process because we now need to make a new determination based on changes being made into the new Ethos study. I hope that helps.
Okay, looks like we have one more. It's a DUA question. If our DUA is embedded into another type of agreement, can you review this as well? I think Manali, that one's also going to be for you.
Yes. So as of right now, since this is a very new initiative, we are only focusing on studies that have just DUA. Moving forward, yes, we will tap into this different type where the DUA is in combination with some other type of agreement. But for right now, we will focus on DUAs, and then in the future, we will incorporate that.
Okay, thank you, Manali. And I want to thank all of our presenters and thank you all for attending today's session. So our next Research Matters session is scheduled for the 20th of May. So I hope you all have a great rest of your week. Thank you for joining us today.